What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. So we now have a new economic kind of cascading effect that is happening here. And this is just the first one that we have to talk about here. Take a look at this. Yeah, here's why some economists are concerned that student loans may cause the next big bubble. That comes here as today is the starting of student loan interest resuming for the first time in over 3.5 years. That's right, since March of 2020, going all the way back to former President Donald Trump and the beginning of the pandemic, the very beginning of the virus, before you even wore a single mask, before a single um, shot was given, before we had any hysteria of anything, people were paying on all these student loans. Now, the interest is going to start resuming, and some people pay anywhere between 3 and 7% or higher on student loans. And over 45 million people have student loans, and more growing every day as more people go to college and take them out. And of course, interest rates are higher than ever and are continuing to get higher. And not only just 45 million people have student loans, but also their families are affected by this, their spouses are affected by this, and their children, the entire family. And this is a growing problem, which is going to be cascaded by the entire economy. Take a listen.
Next guest says brands such as American Eagle Outfitters, Carter's, Crocs, Foot Locker, many of the ones that Courtney had mentioned will actually be impacted by the resumption of student loan payments in October. Joining us now is Michael Zakor, Five New Digital founder and author of The New Retail. Michael, great to have you with us. It sounds like a big deal, and it may in fact be a big deal, but there's actually a 12-month grace period for folks if they don't pay their student loans before it hits their credit score. So I'm wondering how you assess the actual impact immediately.
Yeah, listen, even with the grace period, this is going to have an immediate impact. We're hitting the fourth quarter here. This is make or break time for every retailer and brand in America. You know, most brands make and retailers about 70% of their yearly income in this coming quarter. So the timing of this really couldn't be worse. Listen, CNBC has been doing a great job of covering this. You know, we've seen Cameron McNair report that 56% of borrowers are going to be choosing between groceries and paying back their student loans. 70% of college students with debt saving, who are coming out now are afraid for their careers. And so you have this double whammy of two groups really being hit hard. You have millennials who are in their 40s with their own kids going back to school. You have recent graduates. This is going to be a disaster for retail in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, on top of this, households largely have spent down their excess savings from the pandemic, according to the San Francisco Fed. So that's another headwind here in terms of the overall retail puzzle. Are we going to see the most of the impact here for holiday, for Halloween and holiday? I mean, most of back to school is done, so maybe they've spent that.
Yeah, we're going to really see this come to the fore during the holiday season. If you look at what's happening here is we're just becoming a debtor nation, right? And so is this going to have a huge impact on overall holiday sales? No, but it's one more pinprick into the balloon that we're hoping is going to be full for the season. I mean, we're talking about $32 trillion in U.S. debt, household debt of 17 trillion, credit card debt of 1 trillion, and lo and behold, student debt is $1.5 trillion. So even more than credit card debt in the U.S. And so we were telling these mixed messages where we're saying, hey, go out, get educated. That's the key to a great life in America. And then after you get educated, go out and spend, because we're a consumer-driven economy, and we're making it impossible to get an education and spend at the same time.
I don't want to minimize this issue in any way, but in some respects, I feel like we're setting up for, the excuses to start flying from some of these retailers come the next reporting season, right? You're already hearing about shrink being an issue. the degree to which we're not exactly sure, and retailers who have never mentioned it before are now mentioning it. Now I can see a scenario in which this becomes one of those line items of concern that we start hearing about in the months ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. Shrink has been the narrative. We had a lot of retail earnings come out last week. Most of them were not good. We've seen, Target take a hit, Macy's take a hit. I think the trend that we're seeing there is the traditional middle of the road retailers are suffering. They continue to suffer. I think it's less about outside forces like shrink. I think, inflation is still putting pressure there. But eventually, you're right, the excuses run out, right? So there's inflation, there's shrink, there's student loan debt that they deal with. I think the bigger issue here is there are a lot of retailers in the U.S. who have simply not adapted to the way people shop, where they shop, how they want to shop. This is a much more integrated retail world. It's the integration of online and offline and technology and content. And so we see, a lot of companies who are doing really well. Luxury has never lost any of its steam. Luxury is doing well. The dollar stores, the value stores are still doing well. I think it's a lot of that boring, middle of the road, unimaginative retail.
Well?
Yeah, so you can see these retailers and the economy already struggling. Now we have 45 million Americans and their families, which really affects who knows how many millions of Americans. You really can extrapolate that to who knows, maybe even half of America. And things are going to be, you're going to see here. I mean, the average student loan payment is $5,000 a year, and 2/3 of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And they haven't had to pay on these for 3.5 years. And we're already starting to see the effects here in the economy, and they're not even having to pay these payments yet, which the average American does not have. And we're already starting to see, I mean, interest rates are already sky high. They can't pay. Where's the money going to come from? We're already starting to see 8% interest rates on homes, car interest rates, credit card interest rates at 25%. It's just an absolute rough time. And then we're going to have this here. Here's the newest thing here right now. Visa and MasterCard are about to make changes customers really won't like. The credit card companies are looking to increase their revenue. This is going to affect retailers and all stores here across the world. Take a look at this. The credit card companies are looking to increase their revenue. Visa and MasterCard are preparing to increase the fees they charge merchants when customers pay with a credit card. I'm not sure if this is going to affect debit cards as well, because remember, debit cards are basically our Visa and MasterCards as well, believe it or not. The increases are set to start in October and April, respectively. I think one for Visa, one for MasterCard. The increase to the fee structure could cost merchants an additional $502 million in annual fees, says a consulting agency to the Wall Street Journal, I think that is. They further estimated that the increase in network fees will make up only half of that $502 million. The other half of the fees will come from increases in swipe fees, which merchants pay whenever a customer pays with a credit card. So network fees and swipe fees. So basically just think extra fees, which is going to be passed on in increased prices. These fees, though largely hidden from the consumers, represent a significant source of revenue for the credit card companies. Merchants in the U.S. pay around $93 billion a year in Visa and MasterCard fees alone last year, in 1 year. So just think $100 billion almost a year to Visa and MasterCard, according to the Nielsen report. That number was only $33 billion in 2012. The card companies the card companies set and pocket the fees, according to the journals. the bank pockets the swipe fees. The planned increase comes as small businesses are still struggling to deal with inflation and high interest rates, and even more businesses are offering incentives to customers to pay with cash or debit in an effort to avoid these fees. There are fees involved with debit cards, though, although they can be smaller in some cases. I know this because I've been in businesses throughout my life, so I kind of know about credit and debit card fees. So I do know a lot about this stuff, although I don't have the fee sheets in front of me or anything like that. A bipartisan bill named the Credit Card Competition Act was introduced in June in both the House and the Senate, which the proposed piece of legislation would allow merchants to process Visa and MasterCard payments over alternative networks. It's time to inject real competition into the credit card network market, which is dominated by Visa and MasterCard, they said. Regardless, that bill, even if that bill passed, competing with Visa and MasterCard, you would need a massive, massive company to compete with that and then sprout up. And then you would need, that's probably just not going to happen. So don't get too excited about that. Regardless, and when these fees go in, it's going to end up costing, you're going to see companies raise their prices, even if it's a few pennies or 10 cents or, a couple pennies per transaction. That's going to add up because have you ever been to a business that says we don't accept American Express, we don't accept Discover, or we don't accept credit cards at all? I know you have. They do this because they don't want to pay the credit card fees. And in hindsight or in foresight, it's very foolish by the credit card or by the business because they actually lose money. Because if you ever go to a business like that and you don't have cash on you, they lose business. Because even if you say, okay, I have cash, no big deal, there are customers who go there and say, I only have a Discover, or I only have an American Express, or I don't have cash. Or maybe they could go to an ATM, but they don't want to. Okay. Or, some people just say, I only have a credit card, or I only have a Discover. And they will lose some customers by doing that. Okay. It's just a matter of fact. It's just a reality of things. So especially nowadays, I feel like, and I don't know the exact numbers here, but probably 90% of people use credit cards or debit cards. Okay. And if they don't have a card machine at all, that means that they can't even take debit cards, like if it's cash only. And we're going to a cashless society. I see a lot of people kind of fear this, but it's not even really because of the government per se, but it's really just because of kind of the people's shopping habits. It's just kind of the way it is. It's just kind of the way we're going. People use their credit or debit card. Some people use cash, sure, but a lot of people just pull out their credit or their debit card. Yeah, and it's just kind of easier. Some people do it because of the reward system. When you use your credit or debit card, you get rewards back. If you pay your bill off in full every month, you actually get paid to use your card. The card companies will actually pay you if you don't pay interest. If you pay your bill off in full, you actually get paid by the credit card company. So, yeah, all this to take into consideration. But when they raise their fees, the companies that actually take in these fees, some of them are going to raise their prices. Not all, but some of them. It might just be 1% or 2% or a little bit, a quarter here, a quarter there. Some companies won't raise their prices. Some of them will just leave prices alone. If the price is $3.99, they might just leave the price at $3.99. But some of them might raise some prices a little bit, and thereby you'll see a little bit more inflation. And this really doesn't have anything to do with any particular person or president or Democrat or Republican or any particular thing. But again, this is just another example of inflation in the market and massive, massive companies that already make $93 billion a year wanting more money. So let me know your thoughts here in the comments. I'll keep you up to date here. If you haven't yet, click the subscribe button down below. Don't miss out on any new videos. It's completely free to do so. New videos come out here on our YouTube channel every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks for liking and share these videos with anybody that needs to hear this information. Click here to see how China is taking people's land, or you can click here to see how the Fed is terrified. Click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.